Actually, I would try to start by putting it into perspective. It wasn't a conflict as such, because the company you've referred to is not actually the dealer in the potato business. It just came in as a facilitator because of the observed malpractices that were characterizing some of the dealers in the value chain. So it was coming as just a monitor to try to stabilize, to bring harmony to the system.
But it failed to bring harmony to the system.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that it failed as such.
What happened?
What happened is probably the expectations were high. So that maybe in the shortest possible time, that kind of stabilization would have been achieved. And you know, Rwanda is a country that needs quick results. So maybe, and the dealers as well, maybe they would have the equal expectations that probably things are going to be fixed maybe be 1 or 2 days later, which is not actually the case in real practice. So what happened is actually we do have the cooperative, producer cooperatives, which we all have in mind and believe that once they are that operational and responsive to the market needs and providing the required organizational setting to facilitate the market, then that makes the business ideal. But I think what the company has been trying to do is trying to also put I may say, to strengthen or to enable the cooperatives or the correction centers to be set so that maybe as the withdraws, they may be able to function on their own and they may carry on with the required monitoring and the stabilization of the system.
Daniel, maybe tell me, what does this settlement mean, or what does it entail? Like, what's in the settlement? Because we saw 3 ministers. This is not a normal thing. It's not every day you see 3 ministries onto one thing to solve one issue. So what comes after the settlement?
Yeah, actually, yes, just to touch on that, the 3 ministers, you know, institutions normally in Rwanda, you may work closely. True. So we do have the Minister of Agriculture, which is primarily concerned with production and ensuring food security among the Rwandese. And we do have the Minister of Commerce, which regulates the trade deals around. And we do also have the Minister of Local Government, which has got the population in its hands. So you saw, if you try to view it in an integrated way, you find each of them has got or is concerned in what's going on.
Responsible for this.
So that means any kind of settlement has to involve all of them or a number of other stakeholders.
Okay, maybe, Daniel, but yes. What is in the settlement? What does the settlement entail?
So what the settlement actually entails, when I look back on the company we've been referring to, that was a temporary measure maybe put in place to try to have to fast-track that stabilization. Sure. But now, if the actors wish that probably we may do it on our own, and then let's see them, just empower them and give them a chance probably to, you know, in Rwanda we are used to generating solutions out of our efforts. Sure. And that's what we believe. So we believe that by empowering those cooperatives, which we had in mind in the beginning, only that we wanted to just fast track, so we believe that strengthening their cooperatives, their collecting units for the potatoes, would definitely provide a long-lasting solution to facilitating the market deals and also tracking down the malpractices that have been in practice before. Yeah.
Daniel, allow me to bring this conversation back to June. Back in June, we did see, of course, a price hike, soaring, of course, of potato prices, saying that this was after a good 5 months when the government put restrictions on middlemen brokering prices for this particular crop. And if I'm not mistaken, allow me to check this well, we saw for the Kinigi potatoes, 1 kilogram was going for about 350 Rwandan francs to about 500 per kilogram of Irish potatoes. If you look at it today on the market, what are we looking at?
Yeah, actually, we have to appreciate that. Actually, all this is actually has the background that the potato market is expanding.
True.
It's now moving. It's actually, people have been referring to this one as a food security crop, but now it is more of a commercial crop. So people are just growing it for earnings, for a lot of financial earnings, and it's got a lot of interest in it, either by the producers and many other people who have not been in the potato production business are now taking on through the arrangements of land lease. And this is actually contributing to maybe over 60% of the production we have. So what may be in the background is that we have the potato commodity being traded even across the borders. So
how much are we looking at in terms of exports?
So maybe it may be expanding. I may not have the figures as per now because they may just keep shifting because when we have a kind of shortage, we may have supplies from neighboring countries. So we do have a kind of free market across borders. So our populations can trade to each other in terms of the availability, the supply to the neighbors, and the vice versa. So I would say that referring to what you were asking in the beginning, it wasn't, the market doesn't have to always be that stable or
no,
constant.
It's a very volatile market.
It's actually dynamic.
We understand this.
So I think it was the fact that maybe I would shed on the second point, but first I would want to elaborate this one, the expansion of the market. We have got potato crossing borders. We've got the increased productivity. The productivity is increasing. And then if, because of the expansion, the sudden expansion of the production, and then with the increased use of fertilizers, we have got new fertilizer brands now coming in, and they are really making it making the potato responsive to the fertilizer applications, and then the productivity increase. So I think this is something that maybe people have not been able to understand, because they have got some other fertilizer formulations, and this has significantly contributed to the productivity among farmers. So I think
this is the NPH you're talking about.
No. We have got micronutrients. That means we do local blending.
Okay.
And so farmers can apply specific fertilizers specific to the soil needs.
We're coming